All right, that helps. Okay, so tonight we're going to model lofted forms. So I started a new folder here, and what I want to take you through are the examples that I have of the different uses and times you would use lofts. So to find that tool, those are under the create form, and down here is loft. And what a loft does is it takes two different sketches on two different planes and creates surface geometry between those. And what that means is, like in the example here, it's showing that doesn't have to be like one circle to another. It will automatically generate and blend two differing sketches. So like the example here is a circle to a square over a distance. It will create between that. So what I used for that is I created a bottle, a syrup bottle, because why not? And I put it as red glass and such. So let me just shift the appearances here so it's a little bit easier to see. So what we'll eventually be doing with this is you'll be creating two separate components. One of the components will be the body. The other will be the cap. And as you can see here, I've added some features to it, but when I hide the cap, what I also did is I created threads at the top of this. So we'll actually also be showing you how to use the thread tool, which is not coil, but actually down here, akin to the hole tool, which is, I'm sorry, I think it was Aaron that was asking me earlier. I don't remember. Anyway, the reason these are two together, and like was asked about the hole tool, where you cannot create your own profile, the hole is specifically designed to create a cylindrical hole in a body, realistically to interact with, say, like threads or screws or pins, things like that for manufacturing or construction, anything like that. So that's why those two are in the same little bracket here. But the thread tool will automatically generate threads based on a diameter, be it inside or outside of the surface. So we're going to get to that, but realistically, that'll be next week since it's also already 7 o'clock. But what we're going to be doing tonight, and I'll just unhide that, resize, we're going to be creating a bottle. Now, we're going to try and get to also pipes tonight. I don't know if we'll get to that, but I'll excuse me. I'll show you how to do that. The pipe tool is akin to the hole tool in that you are creating a tube, or it can be square. So it's a predefined profile along a path. So that could be a straight line, it could be a curved line, it could be a fit point spline, but you can only define whether or not it is either round or square, solid or hollow. And the reason for that is it's more designed to work with manufacturing. So if you're creating something out of tubes, be it or solid round material, like if it's steel, so you'd be bending it realistically, or if it were tubes, it would be a hollow form, something to that effect. The other version is you can actually use a loft to create forms, or rather rounded forms and such. So the example I have here is you can create a round loft. It doesn't have to be vertical in one line. You can create a loft along a path. And the difference between that is it's just like a pipe tool, only you get to define the profile. So in this case, I actually made, just like the example said for loft, there's a square or a rectangle and a circle, and it generates a surface between those two, only it's around, or only it's along a path, this circle I drew. And what I did is I created half, then just mirrored it to create the other half. But for tonight, what I want to focus on is how to create, not F5, how to create a bottle. So what we'd start with, and a few of you have already been playing with different construction planes, and we've also discussed it lightly, but we've discussed using construction planes. So I'm going to hide the cap, hide the bodies. It's super spoopy season, so hide all the bodies. What I did is I created a series of construction planes, and I'll unhide the origin as well, because that counts as one. And these represent the different levels of where I want to sketch. So rather than, technically, yes, you could do all of your sketches on one bottom plane and then individually move them. And then, like we talked about with a couple of other projects, you will have to capture those. So when you move them, the capture bar show, or the capture tool comes up right over here, next to select and insert and such. But otherwise, using construction planes, you can preset them. So with the benefit to presetting them at distances means that, well, if you wanted to change the sketch or add sketches on that level or add details or anything like that, you don't have to go through the effort of repositioning things. So what I did is I took some basic measurements off of a bottle. And of course, I don't have that bottle on me right now. This is an older project. Created those, and then I'll unhide the sketches. Oops, those are the sketches for the bottle. And what I did is I started with a square or rectangle. I added some fillets and such just to round it out. And I just worked my way up. That one's slightly larger. The next one's slightly larger. But then I transitioned to a circle. Now, I do recommend actually like labeling these, because the sketches and parts and such, because it easily gets confusing. But I was changing to then a circle. I kept going. I wanted it to kind of balloon out from there. Then I wanted it to taper. And then finally, the last level. Other constructions were, or other sketches were copying the profile and things like that. And then what I did for that is use the Loft Tool. Now I'll go back in time here. So this is exactly where all that would be. So when I created a loft, and I will edit the feature. When you create a loft, you select the profiles. Profiles being your sketches. So the sketches are all on multiple levels in this case. And you have to make sure to select them in order. I would say it doesn't matter if you start at the top and go to the bottom, or start at the bottom and go to the top. But in this case, I was intending on extending the top of this bottle. So just in case I wanted to keep adding to it or anything, I started at the bottom because I knew it wasn't going to go any further below. And I selected them in order, moving upward. And then you have your standard operations, new body, cut, join, because you can, of course, form other things, but I wanted a new body. You have some options here. You could have a guide rail, and that's how I created the circle or the ring here. That circle was a guide rail. In this case, not doing any of that. Oh, it booted me out of it. That's what the option is. So it could either be centerline or rails. Those are options. If you select neither, it will just automatically create this form, this shell body in order around that. Chain selected, yeah, leave that selected. Closed will seal off the form. I would recommend leaving that unchecked. And there you go. It starts creating all kinds of problems. The tangent edge just adjusts slightly. It's really hard to see because of how I'm creating this. Let me change the visual style. Oh, that's not even changing. There it goes. So that's just showing you the different line edges that it creates. No need for that. I would just merge them, leave it merge, and then hit OK. I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want to change this right now. And it's got the body hidden right now. That's why it's not showing. And there you go. That creates a solid form in that shape. So you can play around with whatever you're using. It really doesn't matter. But we're modeling a bottle. So we're going to start a new one. And oops, I left my bottle over there. So excuse me a second. Let me stand up and get the thing I was going to model tonight. Alrighty. So I'm going to stop the screen share just so I show this properly. So I'm going to be modeling yay pasta sauce. Also because I don't have a syrup bottle anymore, and that's disappointing. But this bottle goes from a rounded bottom to a more, although rounded, still square feature here. Then it goes quite flat, square again, transitions to round again, and then I have a little bump out, thanks to that effect. So I'm going to model from the bottom up, taking measurements, going from there. So let me reshare my screen. All right, so I'm starting from a new bottle and sketch and project. Now, this will eventually require a couple of components. So I like to start my project by assigning the components. It just helps me stay organized. So I have my main project active, main component. I'm going to go up to assemble, new component, brings up the new component. And I'm going to put just jar. There we are. Now, if you remember, if you leave this activate checkbox selected, it will automatically snap to that. And the problem with that is if you then just go straight to create another component, it will create that component within the active component. So I'm going to deactivate that, hit OK. Doesn't change anything because that jar was selected there, but otherwise it would automatically, or sorry, not jar, the component I assigned, or I titled jar, would be active. And if I went to create that component, I'll just hit OK. See, it creates that component within the other component. I do not want that. So I'm going to Control Z that, go back up, make sure to activate the whole project, very top, then hit new component. Now we got it. And lid, standard component, do not activate. We're good. Okay, so that will be the lid. Not going to mess with that tonight. What I want is my jar. All right. So I would say start with sketches, but like I said, we're going to be creating offset planes, construction planes. So what I want to do first is take some measurements starting at the bottom of the jar and measure up to my standard features. So where the jar starts to split, measuring from the bottom, that is 25 millimeters up. So when I select construction plane, now I have to start from the original spot, the original origin, my XY axis, but now I want to slide this up or just type in 25. Okay. Now I'm going to keep doing this. So I want to unhide my origin because that's where I want it. Start another one. Now from here, you can start at the next, you can start each measurement from your new construction plane and just keep going, or you can measure from the very bottom. That part is totally up to you. Doesn't matter. So I'm just going to start from each one and just measure incrementally. So that next one is like 98. So I'm going to start my construction plane there. 98. Whoop. Hit F6 to resize. Next feature from that one. Now I'm measuring to basically where the jar starts to become a circle, and that is 20. So again, another construction plane right there, 20. Then from the bottom of that to the lip, that's like 8. Now remember, you don't have to keep going up and selecting your tool each time. What you could do is right click. That brings up your recent tools or most likely used. You don't even have to click on the repeat offset plane. You can just mouse up and close to it. It'll select it for you. There we go. Of course, now I've lost track of what I was doing. That was like 8. There we go. Now there is a bump out here, and I'll just say that's like 2 millimeters up. Oh, stop doing that. There we go. 2. And then again. Now they just incrementally start getting larger because it just helps you create. It just helps you. Ideally, it helps you to see them more clearly. So I'm not selecting these to be larger construction planes or anything. So just know that if and as you're constructing those, that's what's happening. And the last one would be, I'm not going to open the jar to get it, from that lip to the top. That's like 18. So one last one. Repeat offset. There you go. 18. Cool. All right. So these are my major areas. Now, the reason I am not doing everything here and then moving each sketch up is that can really cause problems. It's a lot more efficient to work on different construction planes. So now I'm going to start with measuring things. So if you got your ruler, you should be using that. If you have a digital caliper, that will also come in quite handy. So remember, if y'all haven't gotten those yet, you should be looking into getting some digital calipers. They're really handy. You don't have to have them for this, but again, they're handy to use for measuring round things accurately. So for this first circle, the bottom of the jar, glad this is closed, otherwise I'd be dumping pasta sauce all over my lap. That is like 65 millimeters. All right. So now we're going to start creating sketches. Create sketch. I want that original origin plane. There we are. I want a center circle. And I'm putting those right on my origin point. Makes everything a lot easier. That was 65 millimeters. Cool. Now, the tedious thing about this is I'll be creating sketches individually per layer. So I'd have to then, all right, finish sketch. Now start a new sketch, select the next plane. It gets a little irritating, but at the same time, again, for efficiency's sake, the initial efficiency doesn't feel as efficient. But when you actually start getting into keeping things separated and such, it really does help a lot. So the next part, I'm using my calipers to get a better handle on this. Excuse me. That's like 78. Now that's a square with very rounded edges. So my square tool, center rectangle, same deal. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to zoom in, but the reason this feels like it's way out of place is because as I pan and tumble and such, you can see how I'm now working on this plane. You could just still see that origin plane down there. So I still want to select right there. And poop, what did I say? 78? Yeah. 78 by 78. Okay. And now I do want to put a pretty heavy fillet on this. So I'm going to start by that one. And I'm just going to estimate that to be about, let's say 10 and more like 15. That looks roughly correct. And remember, if you mouse over, yes, the warning comes up because I'm altering a square. So I mouse over, and that radius says D11, 15 millimeters. If I keep typing in D11, each one of these fillets will reference that one. So if I change the original, all of them change. Fillet again. Type in D11. There we are. So I'm going to just keep doing that for these. D11. D11. Now, the thing about this is the way I'm drawing this all out, I could come through and alter these, and the loft form I'm about to create will reposition itself, will recalculate itself to fit new adjustments. So that's also all the more reason why I want to make references and things like that. All right, keep going. And now actually, this top one up here is basically the same. So what I can do, remember, if you want to copy a sketch, you have to go back and actually pull it from the active modifying thing. So I have to go back, edit sketch, double click that line to select it. Now I can Control or Apple C or Command C, whichever you're working on, Mac or PC, finish. Now when I go up to the next one, create sketch on the next sketch up, now I can Control V on that one. I just have to select an origin plane. Or origin point, rather, sorry. All right, now this is where it gets confusing when you get a bunch of them together, so I would, again, recommend hide some of these buggers. So if I'm not working on these, let's go ahead and hide that. That starts to get real irritating. All right, you got to select a point. Why is it not pasting? Le problem. All right, go back to the there. Edit that sketch. Sometimes, for some reason, it won't copy properly. I don't know why. When you just use the keyboard commands, I don't know why it does that sometimes. So now go to the next. Go back to the one I was trying to work on. We're on that one. Well, that's just irritating. I don't know why it's not doing that. Fine. We'll just make a new one. Okay. Center point. Gets hard to see sometimes. Working on the center. All right. Oh, that's why. Okay, hang on a second. Now I see what's happening. It wasn't selecting that construction plane as my starting point. Like I said, sometimes this gets real confusing. Uh-oh. Is that on where it needed to be? Yeah, okay, there it is. Sorry. Just making sure it's actually where I want it to be. So 78 by 78. We'll make the fillets again. First one. Don't know why it won't just stay as the last. Mouse over to get my reference point. D17 this time. Repeat. So as always, this part gets tedious. Try to make this faster as fast as I can. D17. Again. D17. Cool. Yes, yes, yes. All right. So now we're starting to get there. Unhide the next one. Now this one is a circle that is back to 65. Sketch onto there. Center circle. Right smack in the middle. 65 millimeters. That one's easy. Unhide the next plane. All right. Now this one, slightly smaller at like 63. It's, oops, wrong thing. It's minor, but it does make a change. Onto there. Center point, smack in the middle. Let's say 62 just because I feel like making round numbers. Unhide next. Now this is where I'm trying to create the little bump out. So we'll see how this works. This might not be the best option to create this. But as always, you can always edit stuff back out. So right in the center. Now this bumps out to, get a measurement on this, 74. Oops. You actually have to pull it out there. There we are. All right. Unhide. Next one. Like I said, this part gets mighty tedious. Now we're right back down to 63. All right. Now I know I have a couple more. Those are going to be for other elements. So I'm going to leave it right there for now. I'm going to hide those two construction planes. Finish sketch. So now I have, as you see, I have these elements. And the reason this one is blue is because I didn't define everything properly. That doesn't really matter. Okay. So now go to create and loft. Or if you can't find that there, remember, you can bring up your toolbox search by pressing S. From there, you can just start typing in loft and it'll find it for you. Same diff. All right, now start selecting the profiles. Now remember, select them in order. That is very important. I'm gonna start at the bottom and work my way up. And you can see it starts making some real weird stuff here. And this is where you find out whether or not you need to add more parts in. So clearly, that is not what we're looking for. That's okay. What that tells me is there's going to be some features I'm going to have to add in. But for now, that's what you're trying to achieve. Obviously, that's not what I want, but we'll get there. Hit OK. And that is a lofted form. Now, again, that is very much not the pasta jar I was trying to create, but that's because what I'm going to need to do, let me unhide the sketches here. Much like a fit point spline, each one is dependent, each level is dependent on what the previous information is. So looking at this straight on, what it's doing is it's creating a line, actually it's basically creating a fit point spline between those sketches to create the body. And what that means is without additional information to then go straight up and down, it's just assuming that because it's going from this smaller circle to a rounded rectangle, with nothing in between the next rounded rectangle, it's assuming it's just making a bold form or this curved form out there. So what I'm going to actually end up having to do is add some other lines or some construction planes inside of that. So while I do that, does anybody have any questions so far? Pretty well straightforward or completely confused? Let me hide that because I want some construction planes right there. All right, so I'm going to add one. Just going to add it like 2 millimeters up. And let's see if this thing will actually not irritate me and let me actually mess with this one. So I don't want to actually have to redraw every one of these. Right click. Yep, all right, we got it copied. Cool. Finish sketch. Now I want to create a new sketch on this construction plane I started. So I am, nope, it accidentally selected the wrong one. Nope, I don't want that one. There we are. It automatically hit it. I'm going to start a new sketch on this construction plane. And let's Control V that. That's so strange that it's not letting me do that. I really let me hide that. I don't understand why it's not letting me do it. Whatever. We'll just make a 78, 78. Oh, actually, no. I wanted that a little bit smaller. Nor did I want that to be a... So let's make this 76. And same. That will help inform this. So fillet right there to there. And since the other ones were 15, I don't know. We'll make it 18. Why not? Why not? Mouse over, D28. Cool. Ugh. D28. D28. And D28. Okay. Now this part gets to be tricky when you're trying to add stuff into a loft. So let me unhide the body. What I'll probably have to actually end up having to do is just delete that loft and move it forward. Namely because I should have slid the history slider back and added those parts before I did the loft, and I plumb forgot to do that. So I'll just delete this loft here, and I'll add it now at the end. So I want all sketches active. There we are. Create loft. Okay, now I'm going to end up adding in this extra one. Now I didn't add the one up top, so I just want to see what will happen. So select that one, there, there. That's going to do some weird stuff. Yeah. This is going to take some work. All right, let's try to mess with this a bit. Yeah, so this is going to take a little bit of work to create my lofted form. But now it's getting closer. Just obviously down here went nanners. So what I'll probably end up actually having to do is move this construction plane sketch up a little bit to give it some better definition. Not that big a deal, just got to play with it a bit. Sometimes rectangular forms do get a bit tricky because you're trying to transition from different size parts. Other thing could be I might need to add in another sketch of another circle down here at the bottom to give it a little bit more information to work on. But as you see, I am getting closer to what I want. Now, one thing I am looking at, this profile, yeah, that ain't working so well. So I'm going to go in here, my selector, select profile, and I'm just going to cut that out. All right, that smooths out that form, and I think what'll actually be better is I'll create a lofted ring around that part to make my little bump out. So like I said, you might find out, I put the profile there. I need the sketch, but you know what? It doesn't work as well. That's okay, because that circle is still going to be very useful to me to create, use that as a guide rail for my other form. I'll hit OK. Still a pretty screwy looking bottle, but I'm getting closer. All right. Back to there. Excuse me. Okay. Questions so far on creating lofted forms? Everybody's pretty well good or completely confused. That's fine too. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is, instead of, and let me hide that. Let's see here. So what I'm doing now is, like I said, I created a couple of extra construction planes up here. Now, of course, as soon as we're looking straight on, you can't even see the thing. So right there is one of the, let me see if I can get a better view of it. So right there is the last one, and then up top. The reason for this is up top is where I want to start my lid, and I'm going to create that straight down. But like I said, what I want to do is also create a ring around this bottle. So I'm going to leave the cap till next class. Not going to worry about that right now. So what I'm referencing is, at the top of a lot of these jars, there's a little ridge right there. And all that is really just a circle, but not completely, because obviously it is actually, excuse me, more of like a D shape, because yes, it's round on the outside, but it also obviously has to bond with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new sketch just over here to create like a little profile bump out. And then I'm going to use the existing circle here as a rail to loft a circle around that. Now, the reason I'm not using a pipe tool, it could do the same thing, but it would only let me do a defined profile. That's not at all what I want. So I'm going to go to front, just because I want the front view, create a new sketch, but now I'm going to work straight on. So I have to get to that front sketch. If you have trouble selecting that and it keeps wanting to select the body, remember, let me just collapse some of this stuff. You can just hide the body, select that front plane, and then unhide, just so you can see what you're working with. All right, so what I want to do, I'm going to start by creating a circle just to give myself a reference, and a center point circle. So I'm going to get it right on the edge there, and I'm just going to kind of rough this out. I think I wanted it at like, let me take a measurement here. Calipers get in there tight. It actually says it's about 3.5 millimeters, which seems huge until you zoom way out. Like, oh, okay, it's not actually that big at all. Cool. All right. Sorry, I'm trying to find a place to put this jar of sauce so I don't knock it over and onto the floor and shatter it. Now, this would work just fine, and I'm going to show you how to modify this in a minute. But for now, I'm going to just use that circle, hit OK. Now you can see that circle sketch is just floating there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a loft again. Where was it? I forgot where I was working. And I'm just selecting this profile, but now I'm going to select down here a guide rail. And we'll use center line because it's selected right there. And I'm going to select this circle. And that should do it. Now, I do not want new body. I actually want this to join. All right, what is it not letting me do here? Oh, loft, because I would need two of them. Well, I guess this would actually be better used as a maybe revolve, because all I'm really doing is making a donut shape. All right, so it's not letting me do that because in a loft, you need at least two surfaces, two sketches. So I can either sketch another circle over here, but since it's just going to be uniform the whole way through, instead, I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. If I can see it, it's right behind my camera. So I'm going to cancel that, and instead, I'm going to use the Revolve tool. Revolve, select that profile, axis, yeah, just the center line. Now, this gets tricky because you can't see the damn thing. So if you can zoom in, I'm wanting that Z axis, just straight up and down. There we are. That's what I was trying to create, just that little bump out. Now, the problem is it thinks I want to do a cut operation. I do not. I want a join. So now I have that surface. And the good thing about that is when I create a join, it's not going to have that silhouette of the internal circle there. So 360, yep, I want it all the way around. Cool. Let it calculate. There we go. Now I have that circle element joined in. That sketch, just so I quit getting confused. Which one is that? I don't know. Whatever. I was trying to hide it, but it's not hiding for some reason. Oh, because I still had it selected. Duh. Cool. Now, obviously, up from here, this is going to extend higher. And let me go back to front view and unhide that last construction plane to up to here. Now, the reason I didn't create a sketch up here and continue the loft is because I didn't want any curved surface. I want that to actually be straight up. I would need to make sure that that is a direct perpendicular straight cylinder, because that's actually where I'm going to be putting the threads onto. So to do that, all I have to do is an extrude. So select extrude. Now I can select this whole top surface. Now I could drag this up, or one of the things we were talking about before is extents. We didn't really get to play with it much, but what this is you can extrude to a body, a sketch, a face, whatever, so that if you change something, it will continue that distance. So I'm going to select an object, and I want to select this construction plane because that's what I measured up to. There we are. So if I move that construction plane at all, this will change. That works. Join. Yes, I want to join. Okay. And now, since that was an extrusion, that is straight up and down, where as I zoom in, there's a slight curvature up to that point. So this is how you start making complex forms, is you start compiling what you've already learned, obviously. I mean, this is the duh part. You start compiling what you've already learned, but there's different ways of working in elements. Like I said, I was going to loft this ring, but a loft is intended to be used with two different profiles, like this ring is. If I had made two circles, well then yeah, it would have made two circles around. But like with this ring, I wanted it to create a surface geometry between those two around the rail that is that circle. And I just realized I have not saved this project yet, so it's getting a little complex, so let's make sure to save this. And this is just the jar example walkthrough. So y'all can reference this whenever you like. All right, so one of the other tools that we're going to play with that's going to be important in this is the thicken. Well, this is not thicken, this is actually shell. This is akin to a offset tool, only instead of with sketch, which you'd use offset, this is actually making a hollow shell. Now, the reason you would not want to use, say, like a thicken or anything like that, which is a really cool tool also. Where did you go? I'm looking right at it. It's not there. Is because I don't want this, obviously, thicker. A thicken tool you would use for a hollow form anyway. Shell will create just that, a hollow form, but not through and through. You can select where it stays open. really cool tool to play with. So I'm going to select this, and this is how I'm going to create the inside. And obviously, I want it inside. Starting there, starting with that surface. Now, the slider tool, I would not recommend using because it's going to keep recalculating. And there you go. See if I don't crash here. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. Please stop. All right, I got to wait for it to recalculate before it does anything else. Yes, 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 that's fine. It's going completely nanners. Like I said, don't use the slider for this tool because this is exactly what happens. Fun. So while this is hopefully computing and not crashing, this is also as we progress from the semester from this point. Those of you that are using lesser powered laptops and such, this is where you want to be careful with what other programs you have open, because this will definitely start sucking up some serious computing power for your computer. So if you have a bunch of other stuff open, and also all the more reason why I was thinking about using Zoom instead, it seems to use up less resources. Definitely try to dial that back. So I'm going to go to just 5 millimeters, see what that does. Excuse me. While it recalculates, blah, 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 blah. Guess I should have just left it at 3, huh? Excuse me. Yeah, I should have just left it at 3. Yeah, it's thinking about it. It's still thinking about it. Sorry for the dead air. Guess this is also where I get to look over. All right, what else am I running? All right, in the meantime, while it's doing this, so this is pretty much what I'm hoping for y'all to get through for next week, because next week we're going to start with the cap and working with threads, and then if your thing has a handle, or you can add a handle, whatever, that's going to be where we create loft forms and such like that. So effectively, what your goal should be, find a vessel, or you can just kind of wing it. That's okay too. Create a form, create a vessel using Loft, and then create the other features on it. You know, if you has little like ridges, things like that, yeah, sure, add those on. You can play around with embossing, adding labels and things like that. One thing I do want to try to go over tonight also is in this most recent update for Fusion, which was just updated today. At the beginning of the semester, when we were working on the badges, I told you all that Fusion has very limited text features. They have now since finally added in how to map text along a path and such. So when we were talking about having to go through like Illustrator or something like that to create your forms and text and then import them, now you can do it in Fusion. So yeah, irritating, but that's why it's important to make sure when there's updates available make sure to well, let it update, and then obviously check what the updates are and such. Oh my God, I don't know if I crashed it or not. I can't cancel out of it either. Ugh. Oh, yeah. Okay, it's just completely frozen now. Cool. Cool. All right. Give me a second. I'm going to have to force start or stop Fusion. So I'm going to pause the recording here. If I can get that to unstick also, that would be cool. Video. I'm trying to find the record tool. Okay, so we're back up. Reactivated this project. As I was saying, one of the things that might help with the compiling there is I should have created this revolve elsewhere. So what I think I'll do is I will try to move that. So first I'm going to, let's see here. Edit feature, I can only just delete it. That's all right. It was a simple enough feature. I'll just delete that. Now I'll do the shell, and hopefully that works much better. So 3 seemed okay. Still going to take a minute to compile and hopefully not crash. More complex forms do just this. One of the things is because this loft has these weird indentations. Yeah, great. So what's the problem? It's not letting it do it. Yeah, it's probably because these weird indentations. I'll probably need to solve that. Let's try 4 then. Basically, anything that is more complex of a form that it's trying to shell, it will obviously cause issues and such. Now, the reason I'm not selecting any other faces or anything, because I want the shell to begin here. Like it says, select faces to remove or body to shell. If I work from there, it just works the entire thing down. Come on. His fingers. Okay. I'll just cancel this, and I'll mess with the shell later. No, don't crash again. Fine. Grand. All right, so when I reboot this, what I'm going to end up doing is I'm just going to avoid the shell right now. I think what the major problem is the just the complexity of the form because it's not smoothed out. It's got all those odd indentations and such. So I'll end up making some adjustments to my lofts, clean that up, and then shell it. So consider that when you're making your forms, your vessels. Otherwise, it should be a pretty quick computation, but I'm just trying to make all those accurate features and elements. Great. I'm not, what? Why is welding helmet? That's not at all what I'm working on. The recovery system, yeah, sometimes does weird things. All right. So the other thing I want to show y'all, and okay, it kept the revolve. That's fine. Like I said, I think I seriously doubt that that little feature is what's giving problems It's far more about like these features in here and such. So that's okay. All right, so I have the extrusion. That's where I'm gonna put threads later. So let's experiment with creating rails and such, rails and pipes. So I want to add handles to this. So I'll just go to a front view, excuse me, and I'll start a sketch. I want it on this whole front area here. And I'm just going to create a fit point spline and basically make a fancy mason jar. So I'm going to start somewhere along this line or along that edge. And I'm just going to start drawing like a vessel form and such. Or sorry, more of like a, all right, basically let's call it an ear. That's okay. That'll work. So what I'm trying to do here is this is what is going to become the rail. The rail being whatever I create can follow that. It's a path. So if I finish the sketch and just leave it at that, I could say use the pipe tool.
Professor Collins?
Yes.
I'm not sure if anyone else can like see what you're doing, but I can't see like your screen.
Good Lord.
Yeah, no.
Thank you for telling me. I didn't know that it wasn't sharing again. It booted it back out. There we go. That makes more sense rather than just a blank screen. All right, is everybody getting it now?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for saying so. I appreciate it. All right, so all I did was, and I'll just reopen this, edit sketch. So I just created a sketch using a spline tool, fit point spline, and I'm just estimating close to the body here. And I just drew a basic line using 5 points. So the start, cup 3 there, and then the end. Gets close. That's all I want for right now. I'm gonna finish the sketch, and I just want to demonstrate the pipe tool. So the pipe tool, you have a selection here. You select a path. It'll be that. You can select the distance, which ends up being the diameter. So I don't know, we'll say like 3 millimeters. Oh, wait, no, distance is not what I want. Sorry. Section size, duh. Distance, it is a function of the hole. So what that means is distance is anywhere between 0 and 1. That is how you use this as a slider. So you see there's a slider at the bottom. If I slide this backwards, you see my numeric distance goes downward from 1. That's so if you wanted to create a path and you were, say, like connecting multiple size pipes, that's why that's even an option. So I could create one, use the same path, use a different starting point, go on from there. But I want this to be the whole thing. So 1, and then section size, and we'll go like with 3. So that gives you an estimate, or that gives you a preview of how big the pipe will be. Excuse me. Now you can select circular, you can select triangular. Oh, I forgot they started a triangular one. Cool. You can select rectangular, or square rather, triangle. Triangle is really useful for creating cut-in knurls and such. So like textured surface, and we'll use that when we're using the coil tool to create that pattern. So this will have a use, but I'm just going to use circular for now. And I can use the slider to make it wider, make it gigantic. And you can make this hollow if you want. It's kind of irrelevant here, but this is, like I said, if you were creating actual designs for being fabricated in actual steel pipe and such, that's why that's there. But I'll just leave it solid. Now, I don't want it to cut. I want it to join. So it's going to create fancy handle, made it large enough to where it's going to intersect. Now, this is a problem. You see here, it doesn't actually connect, and I'll show you how to fix this in a minute. But right now, where it does intersect and such, it joins, but it doesn't go all the way to. That obviously creates a problem. But I'm going to click OK, just because I want to show you how that works. So that's the pipe tool. Now, if I wanted to get this more accurate, what I can use is another tool called project. And what a project tool is, and where is it? I forget. So I'll just find it with the search. Project. There we are. So what the project tool does is think of when you're using like an overhead projector or something like that, and you are shining a light and you like step or shining like an image or watching a movie or something, and you step in front of the screen. It wraps around you. That's kind of what it means by project. What you're doing is you're borrowing profiles and features and stuff and projecting that line outward. I know that's not at all a one-to-one analogy, but what you're doing is you're trying to copy outlines and such, at least in this case. So I'm going to go back to the front, and with the project tool selected, nope, it went away. So repeat project. What I want, I need this actual like line here. So what I need is this face. Or tell you what, we'll just use the whole body. I don't want, oh, because I joined it. All right, I'll have to do this. I'll have to back up and delete this. Let me finish the sketch. I'm going to put this behind the pipe. All right. No, I don't want to repeat that. I want the project. Crud. Project. All right, so this starts a new sketch. When did, there we go. Come up. It's thinking about it. So this begins a new sketch because I'm borrowing a line from that. So I'm just going to select the body, select this whole thing, click OK. So now when I hide the jar, well, I don't want the whole jar. Now it created that outline. Now this is super useful if you have like a rounded surface and all that, and you can't get an accurate read on it. So this now created this on the main projection, or the project line was created on the set of sketches for the main project. Also because I didn't have the jar active. That's okay. I don't actually need it there. So I'm going to finish that sketch. But now this is available to use. So now when I unhide the project, I'm going to hide the body. But what I want is bringing this pipe back up. That sketch back there. Oh, that was the other one. Where is my profile sketch? Well, that's weird. Oh, it was created up there. Okay. So now what I can do is I can modify this drawing here of my profile of what will be my rail for my handle. Now I can actually have that intersect the actual line. I can move that over and it'll snap to that line. Not getting close enough. Boop, there we go. There we are. So now, unhide that. Now this is still going to cause a problem because what I'm going to end up doing later is actually I want to actually make this with a loft, but I just want to show you what happens with the pipe. What you'll actually want to do is move beyond that line. I'm going to hide the body. So I'm going to take this sketch, or oops. See, when I select over this, now it's letting me actually select what I'm using here. I want just that point. I actually want to move that a little bit beyond the level, or beyond the line of the projected line here. So I want that point. I'm going to bring it in a little bit, and I'll just snap it to the grid. That's fine. So now that I've moved the ends of this line, my fit point spline, inside the body of the jar. Now when I unhide it, oops. Oh, not origin. Oh, created a problem. Edit feature. All right, what's the problem? Geometry. Oh, because it was trying to do that. All right, tell you what, we'll just do a new body. That's okay, and I'll join it afterwards. So it shows me I actually still need to keep modifying that. I need to bring that in a bit more. That's okay. Right now, that's not really relevant, but just showing you what you'll end up having to do is move those points inside the body. But you'll want to do this after it's been shelled, because if you try to bring that in and then shell this body with it all joined, it's going to try to hollow out this handle also, and it's just going to cause all kinds of problems. So I'm just going to leave that as a new body right now, and I'll join it later. Cool. So again, what I can do is I can go in and I can grab that point, sketch point, and I can continue, oops, to move that inward, and it'll recalculate until I get that whole thing intersecting. So you can play around with this stuff, and that's always the cool thing about programs like this is you can make modifications and it'll just recalculate. So that's how you create a handle with the pipe tool. So let's see here. My bodies. I'm going to hide that. Now I want to show you how to use the Loft tool to create that. So we're still going to use that. Hide the body. Now what I want to do is create a couple of profiles to play with. But the profiles need to be aligned like you want them to be. But what I mean by that is if I made the profiles looking the same at the same thing on, like if I made a circle here or the same plane on and made a square here, excuse me, it wouldn't work. It needs to be perpendicular to the rail. So what I'm going to end up doing is creating a new sketch from this direction. Now, I will tell you, if you just try to go all the way left, it gets real hard to remember where you were working. So I would recommend just keeping it keeping your drawing ever so slightly askew here. All right, so reactivate the jar component. I can hide the bodies entirely. I don't need that at all. Now I'm going to create a new sketch on the forward-facing plane. And what I can do here is to ensure that I am snapping to these points is I can use center created elements. So I'll use a center point circle, select right there, and we'll make that, sure, 4 millimeters. All right. And then I'll use a center rectangle, start there. 6 and sure, 10 works. I'm just throwing some stuff out there. Okay, finish sketch. And now as I pan around, or orbit around rather, you see that it is perpendicular to that line. So now I can go and create a loft between those. So my profiles will be that part profile and that profile. And I'll select a center line as that sketch. One more warning, not visible, please toggle visibility. Okay, fine. Now you see, I've created a loft that starts as a square and ends as a circle. And the benefit to this is now I can modify each of these profiles and it will recalculate. Like I said, you can play around with some of the fitting or settings, stuff like that. I'll just use new body for now. Like I said, I can join these later. Okay. So that is how you can create different style handles. So like I said, if I want, I can go in here, modify that sketch. What is that one? Now I can say, you know what? I want that to be actually 15 wide. Finish sketch, it'll recalculate. Now the handle is that much wider. And you could, of course, add like features in, stuff like that. Say like if I wanted to, again, that sketch, edit the sketch. Tell you what, I want to add a little indent in that. So I want to add a circle right at the midpoint. I'll make that 5 millimeters. Cool. Now I'm going to trim that line out. Oops. That line out. So now I have this profile. And I'll have to edit that. All right, edit feature. So it scrambled the profile there. So I'll just delete that. Now select a new profile. What's going on with this? Now it's not closed or something. I must have messed this up. Poopy. Let me go back and fix that sketch. Not sure what's going on with that. Anytime something is not calculating properly, it's always best just to make sure that your lines are all on the same plane. And now it gets really hard to fix what you're doing here. To make sure I didn't move that. Yep, that's what happened. That circle I created was actually slightly off. Yeah, that'll happen sometimes. So we're just going to have to fix that. All right, fine. We'll just Control Z all of that. I'll fix that later. So yeah, you can modify your profiles, creating a loft between them, all of that. Yeah, it's giving me an error message. I got to go back and fix that loft. Let me unhide. Oh, I want to leave that one hidden. There we are. So that's pretty much what you should aim to do. If you want handles and such like that, add your handles. Like I said, the reason I was having trouble with the shell tool, most likely because I have this odd geometry of the jar right now. I'm going to mess with that later. I'll fix that. But that's pretty much what you should aim to achieve this week. Play around, establish your profile, or first figure out what kind of jar you're trying to recreate. If you don't have jars and such or whatever, a vessel, a vase, whatever to duplicate, remember you're not going for a vase. You do specifically want like a jar form because we're going to be adding a threaded lid to this. So keep that in mind. And I'll just make sure to save that because I need to go back and make some adjustments. But there we are. So that leaves us to a pretty good stopping point. So I will stop the recording there. So thank you very much. Good luck with this part. And we'll talk about it more next week.